Imagine spending billions of dollars, and I mean literal billions, plus years of grueling research to build the absolute most advanced artificial intelligence on the planet. Now, imagine waking up to find a competitor has quietly siphoned off its brainpower using a few thousand fake accounts. Well, back in February 2026, the tech world was completely rocked when Western AI giants lobbed exactly this accusation at Chinese labs. They claimed these competitors were running, and I'm quoting Anthropic directly here, industrial-scale distillation campaigns. The stakes? Pretty much just the future of the global tech economy. Welcome to this explainer on the massive controversy currently shaking the very foundations of frontier AI development. If you're focused on understanding the real mechanics behind all these wild headlines, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to break down the timeline, the underlying tech, and the major market fallout from the events of early 2026 to see exactly how this all played out. All right, let's dive right in. The core mystery we're investigating today revolves around one fascinating question. Can an AI's brain actually be stolen? And if its reasoning is replicated, is that genuine corporate theft or just the standard, albeit super aggressive, reality of modern software development? To really understand why billion-dollar companies are suddenly hitting the panic button, we need to look at exactly how this alleged heist went down. Let's quickly trace how this built up. Mid-February 2026 saw a rapid-fire succession of bombshell reports. First up, on February 14th, both Google and OpenAI independently released reports warning that competitors were probing their frontier models. We're talking Gemini and ChatGPT. Then, just 10 days later, on February 24th, Anthropic formally entered the fray, taking it a step further by specifically naming Chinese AI labs like DeepSeek, Moonshot, and Minimax as the main perpetrators. So what exactly were they accused of doing? The Western incumbents claim these competing labs were basically exploiting API loopholes. They allegedly set up thousands of fraudulent accounts to quietly but relentlessly barrage Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude with highly complex questions. And the goal here wasn't just to get the answers. No, it was to probe and map out the underlying reasoning capabilities of these models, effectively extracting billions in proprietary R&D on the absolute cheap. To grasp the specific weapon used in this alleged heist, we've got to talk about distillation. Distillation itself is actually a standard, highly efficient AI training technique. It's where a smaller, cheaper model learns to replicate the behavior of a massive teacher model. Think of it like a brilliant professor tutoring a student. The student skips reading the thousands of books the professor read and just directly absorbs the refined, finalized knowledge. And that analogy brilliantly illustrates why this is such a massive flashpoint right now. Standard training requires building a model totally from scratch. It's brutally slow, it's astronomically expensive, and it requires huge data centers. API distillation, on the other hand, is literally AI training AI. It's the ultimate shortcut. It's incredibly cost-effective and allows for rapid replication of intelligence. Western labs argue that when you do this across competitor lines via API abuse, you're crossing the line from efficiency straight into intellectual property theft. Section 1. DeepSeek's monumental rise. Regardless of how they got there, the technology DeepSeek released in late 2025 and early 2026 completely upended the global AI hierarchy. Just look at the sheer scale of their late 2025 release, the V3.2 model. We're talking about an open-weights model with 685 billion parameters utilizing sparse attention. Prominent AI researchers confirmed this wasn't just some toy. It matched top proprietary rivals like OpenAI's GPT-5 on major benchmarks and even achieved gold medal equivalent performance in elite math competitions like the IMO. For an open model to do this, that was previously thought impossible. Then, they followed it up in April 2026 by dropping V4 Pro and V4 Flash. These things featured a massive 1 million token context window, optimized specifically for long-running agentic tasks. But here is the real kicker, the thing that sparked genuine panic among Western incumbents. It offered frontier-level performance at a fraction of the price. And crucially, it was running on Huawei NPUs, completely bypassing traditional Western hardware monopolies. Now, here is a crucial piece of context that frequently gets lost in the sensational headlines. Despite being the primary target of public outrage, an in-depth analysis from Interconnects.ai revealed that DeepSeek's actual footprint in these distillation campaigns was pretty minimal. While labs like Minimax and Moonshot were generating millions of exchanges, the activity attributed directly to DeepSeek was actually, quote, comparatively small. We have to look at the data impartially here. The loudest name in the news wasn't necessarily the biggest actor in the API logs. So this brings us to a massive industry-wide debate. Is this actually a heist, or is it just standard practice? Are we looking at malicious corporate theft, or is the reality of OpenAI development just being unfairly targeted by massive incumbents who are desperately trying to protect their moats? Because there is a really strong counter-narrative to the theft accusations. AI researcher Nathan Lambert warned that weaponizing this kind of language, calling it a distillation attack, risks demonizing distillation broadly. Remember, distillation is a fundamental, standard technique for making AI smaller and way more efficient. Lambert and others are warning that this aggressive rhetoric could severely cripple academic and open-source AI ecosystems by making standard optimization look like a literal crime. But whether it's fair or not, the rhetoric is already having very real geopolitical consequences. The regulatory fallout in mid-2026 has been incredibly swift. Congressional bills are advancing, executive orders are actively being drafted, and there are serious, high-level proposals to outright ban Chinese open-weight models in the US. The debate over a highly technical software process has essentially morphed directly into a national security crisis. Section 2. Shifting AI market dynamics. To really understand why Western labs are sounding the alarm quite so loudly, we have to look at the broader picture, which is the fundamental commoditization of their core products. The absolutely crucial point here is the hardware. Data from industry analysts shows an unbelievable trend. Using powerful models has become drastically cheaper. To put this in perspective, NVIDIA's latest chips use 105,000 times less energy per token than they did just a decade ago. As hardware gets relentlessly more efficient, the floor is totally dropping out on the cost to operate these massive models. And this dynamic directly erodes the monopolies of the early AI leaders. You see, closed models basically rely on being expensive and creating proprietary lock-in. But open-weight models, fueled by these massive hardware efficiency gains, are virtually free to run and are rapidly approaching, or even matching, frontier performance. When things get cheaper and way more similar, they become commodities. You don't ask who makes the best electricity, right? You just plug into the wall. AI is literally becoming electricity. This leads us right into the great 2026 power shift. AI labs are actively losing their pricing power. Meanwhile, cloud providers are gaining immense control. In fact, industry reports have called the AWS multi-model marketplace the single most underappreciated competitive development of 2026. It makes AI models increasingly interchangeable, which strips the negotiating power away from the creators and hands it directly to the orchestration layer. Ultimately, the app layer, the tools that actually hold your context and your personal data, is where all the real value is being captured. Which leaves us with a pretty profound final thought to chew on. Whether it was achieved through brilliant homegrown engineering or incredibly aggressive distillation campaigns, the capability gap is completely closing. So I'll leave you with this. What happens to the global tech war when frontier intelligence becomes virtually free? Thank you for joining this explainer. Keep questioning the headlines, keep analyzing the data, and we'll catch you in the next deep dive.